Is there a specific kind of case that you maybe prefer a little bit, or do you kind of treat you treat every case the same no matter what, you give the same attention of care, but in your mind is something that a client that you kind of prefer or an industry that you kind of prefer working with?
Yes. All right. And 100%, every client means the same to me. But for me personally, my most exciting is when I see a commercial transaction come in, like a commercial property come in, that just gets me like giddy.
All right, what's a surprising case that you worked on? Something that, you met with a client that you're like, okay.
There's always surprises, right? Like I've had a couple consultations, I've had a couple clients come to me where they're like, I owe the CRA $500,000 in taxes.
How would you advise someone that might not be in a good situation right now, or they're in desperate need of something? How would you advise them in that kind of situation?
Our job is just to make sure that you understand what you're doing. I've had many transactions where after reviewing it, I tell my clients very clearly, you know what? Don't do this.
All right, welcome everyone to episode 5 of the Dhanju Law Podcast. Nandi, welcome again to another episode of your podcast. How are you feeling?
I'm good. We had so much fun the first time, so we came back.
Full circle moment. This episode will be even more interesting. I know, but we did the first episode. We talked about your background, your story leading up to why you became a lawyer, your inspiration, what motivates you, and all those things. And I've seen a lot of your other episodes in the meantime, and you've improved like nearly every single time. It's like you're natural at this now. So I look forward to this episode in specific because what we'll be talking about in this episode are some of your more interesting cases or funny or just maybe out of the box cases that you might want to share with your fans and viewers, because I think up until now we've learned a lot about who you are, what you do, but I want to know about the nitty gritty of your work and maybe things that are more entertaining to viewers and fans that follow your channel or are interested in the subject of law. So I wanted to kick things off with one simple question. How do you approach a case when a client comes? How do you approach that case? And walk me through step by step from the start, middle to the ending. Let's just start off with that.
Yeah, that's a very great question. Number one, it's case by case, right? It completely depends on the client, where they're coming from, whether it's a referral from somebody I know or whether it's just completely, brand new and they don't know anything about me. Right. So let's say it's that type of case. They don't know anything about me. This is the first time they're kind of speaking with me. So the first thing we do, we have a consult. All right. Because I like to get to know them. All right. I like to get to know kind of their background, where they're coming from, their goals. Right. Regardless of whether they go ahead or not. Those are the things that are kind of important to me. Right. Because every single person that I deal with is completely different. Right. Somebody could have the exact same transaction, but it would be approached in a different way, depending on their risk tolerance, their needs, and their end goal, like their long-term strategy, right? So I would still be advising them slightly differently, depending on their holistic approach, right? So let's say they come in with a basic residential transaction, right? So I would ask them, whether they're first-time home buyers, whether this is something that they do all the time, right? Like if they're experienced investors, then of course I'm going to be advising them differently than somebody that's doing it for the first time. And the questions that they have are always different, right? Somebody for the first time, the last question's like, what's land transfer tax? Do we have to pay land transfer tax, right? Or, how like what's title? Like the questions will be completely different. Whereas a long-term investor, the questions are completely different, right? Like their land transfer tax, they already know before they come to me, they already know how much they're paying, right? And that's done. It's not even a question, right? I will always get those wise guys that sometimes come in like, so do I have to pay it this time? Even though they know that they have to pay it every time, right? They've already got like all of that set up. They're asking a little bit more complex questions, right? If they're depending on like if it's a corporate structure, like where are we placing this property in our structure, right? Or this is the property that we're selling to purchase this one, right? What's the best way to go about that? The questions are very different, Right. So I would approach it, obviously, depending on their specific needs.
Right.
Right. And
I guess that's one of the great things about being a lawyer, right? Every case is so different, and it depends on the client. Like, it's so, like you said, right? Some people ask, do I have to pay land transfer tax? Other people are asking, what do I have to pay? So it's completely different clientele, and that's one of the most interesting parts about being a lawyer, right? Before I turn to ask you about the individual cases, is there a specific kind of case that you maybe prefer a little bit, or do you kind of treat you treat every case the same no matter what, you give the same attention of care, but in your mind, is something that a client that you kind of prefer, or an industry that you kind of prefer working with?
yes. All right. And 100%, every client means the same to me, regardless of the value of their transaction, regardless of whether they're a first-time client or a long-term client. It means the same to me, and I will treat it with the same respect and give it the same amount of time, right? But for me personally, my most exciting is when I see a commercial transaction come in, like a commercial property come in. That just gets me like giddy, right? So I don't know why. I don't know. I can't tell you. And it sounds so weird that I get so excited about it, but I just love the complexity of it, right? It's not your day-to-day transaction. Like, it's not something that's really routine. It takes months most of the time. And most lawyers would say, I don't want to do something that takes months. I want to be, done with it. Yeah. I like that you grow with that transaction over time, right? Like, and there's always something that's going to be thrown at you that's just, you never even thought about it. Something that just doesn't make any sense. Commercial transactions die maybe 15 times before they close.
Right.
But it's just part of the fun.
Maybe it's because, correct me if I'm wrong, but commercial transactions, they involve a lot of numbers, and you did your MBA, you have a good business background, right? So maybe it kind of connects to that. What do you?
Yeah, and the funny thing is, and I tell this to all my clients, I hate numbers because I'm a lawyer. Why do you think I became a lawyer? Otherwise, I would have become something else that's foreign math, right? In high school, I'm like, what? I'm mapping it out. Like, what do I have to? What can I do to avoid math and science?
Yeah.
Right. But ironically, like I said, I completed my MBA and I did that. Like, obviously it's something I take seriously, but I would rather not do it. And my clients know, like, I'm not going to get like financial advice or accounting advice. Like, that's something for their accountant or their tax planner or somebody else that's actually specializing in that deal, right? I will run the numbers like preliminarily, but I won't, like, it's disclaimer always. Like, I don't like to provide that advice.
Right.
Because it's just not my area of expertise.
So it's just one of your things that you kind of just fell in love with, and you're not sure why, but you just enjoy it, and that's what matters. That's what matters.
And maybe it's an adrenaline rush because of the size of the transaction. Like, it's just a much larger, like, we're looking at 50, 100, $150 million transactions, right? Maybe it's that really gets me going, where as opposed to like $1 million or $2 million transaction where it's like, it's routine, it's going to close, right? But you're looking at like hundreds of millions of dollars. The risk is much higher,
right?
Which makes it exciting.
Yeah, 100%. And now, so we touched on what your favorite kind of case or deal to work on is. What's the most interesting, or I could say out of the box, or maybe not out of the line kind of case that you've dealt with in your career so far, and share what you want?
Yeah, no, obviously I'm not going to go into specifics. Like, I there's confidentiality involved here, right? But just generally, and it will be a commercial transaction any day, because that'll always be the most interesting. It'll always be the most kind of going on. This was like the purchase of a large mall, right? Like a large commercial property. And like I was saying before, this transaction went on for almost a year. Right? Even though the initial closing was 60 days. But it just kept getting extended. The parties mutually released. Like, the transaction was actually dead maybe 6 or 7 times.
So are you thinking about, like, whether the transaction takes that long? Are you constantly thinking about it? Yes. Even when you're not working on it, yes. Right? I'd assume so.
Yes. And that, I don't know if that goes back to just who I am as a person, but morning, day, and night, my husband can attest to this. Like, I am always thinking about it, always talking about it, and randomly it'll be like, hey, you know, I have this transaction. What are your thoughts? Right? Because something will always come up in my head at any time. And that goes back to the way that I always say, you know, it's not 9 to 5 here, right? Like Dhanju Law Group is not 9 to 5. We are always at your service because I am always thinking about your case.
Right.
Yeah.
And what's a surprising case that you worked on? Something that, you know, you met with a client that you're like, okay.
There's always surprises, right? Something that always surprises me is anything relating to kind of like the CRA, right? Like I've had a couple consultations, I've had a couple clients come to me where they're like, you know, I owe the CRA $500,000 in taxes, right? And now there's like a lien on my house, and like, what do I do? I have to sell my house. What do I do? And they're just freaking out, right? And you have to kind of like walk them through it, and like, you know, it's difficult, right? Because it's like, okay, it's when did they start contacting you? And they'll tell you, you know, 10 years ago. And it's like, so for 10 years you didn't, you know, engage any lawyer, you didn't talk to anybody, you just kind of swept it under the rug. Whereas if it were me and I'm like super type A, like the first time a year that I owe taxes, it was like it's paid that day, right? And I know people's circumstances are different, I know situations are different, right? But at least try to, you know, contact a lawyer to see how you can kind of resolve it.
Right.
Right before it gets really bad.
And what do you say at that point, right? When, I mean, in that specific case, if you have been paying for 10 years, your job as a lawyer is to, you don't tell them what they need to hear. And sometimes, at most of the times, if anything, that's not what the client actually wants to hear, right? But you have to break these shit.
They think we have like a magic wand sometimes, right? Like wave your wand and get like, you know, half them see dollars in taxes, poof. And it's like, you're talking about the CRA here. Like they're not gonna forgive anything, right? Which isn't an absolute. There's nothing else, right? Like there's many situations where we've been successful in reducing the amount that's owed, right? Because they want to at least get something and resolve the matter and move on as well, right? So there's that like mutual interest in just moving on. Right. So sometimes they are willing to kind of there's no guarantee, and I always tell my clients that there's no guarantee. There's absolutely no guarantee that, you know, they'll give you more time, or they'll reduce it, or they'll, you know, be in any way flexible, but we can try.
Right. And when you're looking at a case, when you're, you know, when you meet with the client the first time and they kind of give you all the supporting information and documents, right? How often, like how long does that process take where you're kind of gathering all the information and kind of, you know, preparing the case? I mean, I know it depends on the industry and transaction, but generally, I want to know how much time have lawyers spent on these things and you specifically.
It does really depend on the case, right? Like, let's say a client provides me with 2 pages of documents, right? Then it could be a couple hours. It could be, I can get back to them sometimes the same day or the next day, right? But that's very rarely the case. It's usually, you know, 50 emails. All of these like receipts, or, you know, these are the text messages between me and the other party. Can you review everything, and like when can you get back to me? And it's usually about, you know, takes almost a week on average, because there's just so much to go through, and you want to make sure, you know, you're doing the proper research, and you're looking at the background, the law, whatever's relevant, right? To that map. And it's always different.
And when you're looking at all this information, is it kind of like putting a puzzle together that happened? Describe that. Like, how is it?
Yes, it really is. It's kind of like a puzzle, right? You take the emails, the correspondence, the text messages, you're piecing them together because they're not getting them to you in chronological order, first of all. Yeah. So you're like, hey, like this email is from 2011 and this email is from 2024, like that, you know, and then you have to like put everything in order, and then you piece together like all the other pieces of information, and then you go based on, you know, what the client has told you versus what's actually come up in the documents that they provided, and it usually doesn't line up. Just and not necessarily because they're lying, just because their understanding of the matter is always a little bit different from what's actually gone down.
So most of the times it's not in the favor after cutting.
I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that it's most of the time it's not in their favor, just that it's the understanding of the matter is usually a little bit different. So you kind of, and that's why I never really kind of give them an opinion based on what they told me.
Right.
Because I don't want to provide them some information or some guidance based on what they're saying when what they're saying isn't the actual facts.
Right.
Right? They may think that what somebody did was illegal or it wasn't right. Whereas, if I go and I review it and I realize, that other party actually did exactly what they were supposed to do.
Yeah.
Right? So I don't want to give them that false hope that, hey, you're right. What they did was illegal. And then have to go backtrack after reviewing the documents and having to tell them, oh, never mind, sorry.
Yeah.
You're in the wrong here. Right? Which is, it's never that black and white though. Right? It's never like who's wrong and who's right. It's always like how wrong and how right
Yes.
is each party. Right? And it can vary. Right? Like I'm dealing with a couple disputes right now where it's like that, where nobody's like 100% right. Because it's so rare. I don't think I've ever had a situation where somebody was 100% right.
Never. That would have happened in the first place. That right? I mean, that's not happened, right? So it's interesting. In an economy like today, though, right? Or in the past couple of months, you've seen like quite a bit of. I mean, I'm just talking about real estate and mortgages, right? Specifically, I've seen quite a bit of fraud, or it's very. There's a lot of news out there where there's a lot of fraud going on in the industry, right? And that's what I'm hearing as someone who's on the internet, right? Looking on my phone and scrolling on social media, right? And I think it's because, especially in an economy like today, where market's a little bit slower, people are looking for money, quick access to money, and so sometimes people take advantage of other people, right? It's just the way it is. How would you say, whether it's mortgage brokers or real estate agents, or I'm not even pointing to a specific party, but how can people overall just be more informed before they kind of go into a deal or transaction that, hey, this is what I need to do, this is what I kind of need to review? How would you advise someone that might not be in a good situation right now, or they're in desperate need of something? How would you advise them in that kind of situation?
Yeah. I mean, it is happening, unfortunately, right? And a lot of these stories, I hear about them after that, which it breaks my heart, right? Because I take, like, every client, I take it so personally, right? So it upsets me when I hear, hey, like I had this transaction and it just went so wrong. And, I suffered this loss or something's going wrong with the builder, or, and my advice always is, come to me first.
Yeah.
Right? Come to me first. I understand you're trying to cut costs. I understand you're trying to everything looks great. Right? Like it looks good.
Everything looks so good on paper, but
for example, your builder sold you the dream. Your mortgage broker selling you the dream. You're just so excited. You're like, why am I going to pay another, fee to a lawyer? Like I'm already paying these commissions, these fees. Like I'm already paying so much. Why would I pay a lawyer? And it's like the lawyer is the only one that's actually going to review everything and tell you what's what. Right? Like it's not in our best interest for you to go through with the deal. It's in our best interest for you to understand exactly what's going on and be fully informed before you enter into any transaction.
Right.
Right? We're not going to make more money if you sign on the dotted line. Right? Our job is just to make sure that you understand what you're doing. I've had many, many, many transactions where after reviewing it, I tell my clients very clearly, you know what? Don't do this. Don't do this. Right? And if this is really what you want to do, let's figure out a better way to do it.
Right.
Right? But don't sign these documents. And those are like the happiest clients because they're like, thank goodness, like you saved me from making a huge mistake.
The ones that are just proactive, right?
Yes.
And just, review everything in advance.
Because it's much, much, much worse if you signed and then you get buyer's remorse.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Because then it's first of all, it's going to cost a lot more in legal fees, right? And then it's also going to be much more difficult for us to try to get you out of that deal, right? Unless you really were, blindsided or they really did lie to you about something or misrepresented something, then it's a little bit more difficult. It's still going to cost you a lot more in legal fees, but we would be able to, potentially get you out.
Yeah, I understand. It's great discussions that we're having. I want to shift the podcast now to more of a we talked about all the serious stuff, or like not serious stuff, but all your nitty gritty stuff.
Yeah.
And what goes on in a lawyer's life. Let's talk about some myths versus facts lawyers, kind of experience. So one myth, and again, I'm gonna mention all these things because Suits was one of my favorite shows,
Me too.
right? And I'm not a lawyer, and I still love this show because I just like the corporate, whole atmosphere and stuff. So I'm gonna judge all these things based on Suits. So again, correct me if I'm wrong by all means. But myth one I see is that lawyers are not myth, but just what I'm assuming. Lawyers are always stressed.
Myth. I'm stressed a lot of the time, but not all the time. And I'm definitely not angry and yelling at people and swearing and cussing like in Suits, right? A lot of the time we're just buried in paperwork. Like we're just going through documents after documents. We're not face to face that much, at least not in my line of work.
Yeah. Another thing I noticed from Suits, what about they make it seem like court is like this 1 or 2 day thing and then boom, 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 wrapped up. Then what about that?
Yeah, and I deal with this a lot with clients. They come to me and they say, I want to sue party B, right? When can we get started? And I'll say, you know what? The court's not booking trial dates until end of 2027, right? So you're not getting in there today or tomorrow or next month. The court system, especially here, is very, very slow, right? It can be months before you get in front of a judge.
Wow, well, what's the problem? Why does it take?
It's just backlog, and with COVID, there was a lot of backlog as well. But it's just there's a lot of steps that you have to take before you even get to a trial, right? There's a lot of exchange of documents, a lot of things that you do have to do beforehand, before you get to that point, and a lot of parties settle before they even get to that trial time, right?
Got it.
Yeah.
Is there a specific thing that lawyers or your classmates from school that you like to do for fun? Something common that you feel in your industry?
Most of my colleagues like to drink.
That's true.
Yes, that was always kind of the go-to, especially in law school. After a tough class or after a tough exam, it's all right, let's go to the bar, right? And for me, it was always just kind of I'm gonna go home and I'm gonna take a nap, because that is how I unwind. Or I'll go home and watch a couple episodes and just de-stress. My method of de-stressing is not talk and just being alone. That's completely different. Whereas most of my colleagues, even to this day, they want to go out and they want to socialize, and I'm actually not that social of a person.
Wow. And how many hours for the bar for that? I mean, you mentioned bar in a different context, the bar exam. What's the preparation like for that? Maybe for someone who's interested in becoming a lawyer and not being in law school right now. What's your advice for people that might be interested in that?
So studying for the bar specifically, for me, I think it was about 3 to 4 months every single day. Right? At least 2 to 3 hours. I spread it out, right? Where I was 2 to 3 hours every single day, and then I'll get through all of the material, right? Rather than cramming it or doing 10, 12 hours. So it wasn't super rigorous the way that I set up for myself, but it's because I gave myself more time, right? So maybe that might be my advice. Give yourself the time to do it, and spread it out, right? Because you're better able to absorb that material rather than cramming it into 1 month, right? And doing 10, 12-hour days and just driving yourself crazy. Yeah.
So true. And final question, how many cups of coffee you drink a day?
What?
Just one. What? Black or any?
No, latte. Latte, always. I don't drink black coffee. I drink 1 cup of coffee. I will never drink more than 1 cup of coffee. And a lot of days it's actually decaf.
But what about when you're in law school or when you're studying for the bar?
So what?
Still, any Red Bull energy drinks?
No, I know it's an anomaly. But I don't do energy drinks. I don't do I don't drink. I don't take any other anything else to kind of hype myself up. Let's say it's that 1 cup of coffee, and maybe sometimes Gatorade. But I've never really felt the need. It's about balance, right? Like if you sleep well and you can balance everything out, like you don't need to overstress yourself.
How many hours of sleep do you get?
I don't know what I want to say, but usually like at least 8 to 9. That's when my husband would disagree.
That's good. That's what helps you stay productive, I guess, during the day, right? So when you work, but like
I prioritize, yes, because I function at my highest when I slept well and I've ate well, and like I'm optimized.
allows you to work better, serve your clients better.
Like that.
100%. No, I think this was a great episode. I mean, I talked about some of your interesting cases, about you, a little bit of your personal life, how you balance. Is there anything that you want to add as a last message to the viewers that are watching this podcast? Maybe someone who's interested in becoming a lawyer, or they're a lawyer currently, or they just want to know more about you. Any fun fact you want to share? Just let us know.
Yeah, I mean, you gave me a lot to talk about there, but generally, let's say like if you're interested in becoming a lawyer, or if any of my videos have made you kind of look towards becoming a lawyer, I would be more than happy to have you reach out, and I would love to kind of guide you or provide you with any sort of experience or advice that I could. I mean, I have mentored many people to this day, so I would be, more than open to mentoring more. And, any of my videos have made anybody want to retain our services, I would be more than happy to help with that as well. So you could either contact us through Instagram, TikTok, or call me at 416-727-4177.
Awesome. Thank you, Lavi.
Thank you.